Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko. I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience in Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about courage, resilience, and leadership. I'm joined with my co-host and wife, Jenna.
Hi.
So today is a very exciting day. If you're listening to this on the day that it's released, it's also the release of my book.
Happy book release day.
Thank you. I'm scared. And so my book, A Courage to Live, or The Courage to Live, is getting released. We're going to share everything on socials on how you can get it. It'll be, available on Amazon. If you search my name or you search The Courage to Live, you'll find it. But again, I am very excited. Again, I'm also nervous because I put so much of myself into this book. And on this podcast, I'm going to give an overview of what it's about, some of the different stories that I share in there, and kind of my intention behind writing the book. And then at the very end, I'm going to close out with an excerpt from the book that I'm going to read.
It's my favorite part of the book. And I think, is it your favorite?
It is. It's definitely one of the more emotional parts of the book. But it is, when I wrote it, I was so excited because it was exactly how I felt at multiple times in my life. And every person I've talked to about it felt the same way. And they can completely resonate with it. But before we get to that, so this book is a collection of, there are stories in there. There are stories about, my career and different calls and different experiences. But a big part of it too is I didn't want to just put a book of stories. Like, I wanted to talk about how those events affected me. And I also wanted to talk about how other people going through something similar can then learn to thrive afterwards, rather than make some of the mistakes that I made in my life leading up to my own mental health journey.
So let's start with the title. Do you remember how you came to that?
I do. So the title of the book is called The Courage to Live. And for me, it was, one of my core values was always courage, right? Like, I've had people ask me, how were you able to do some of the things that you did as a police officer? Like, how were you able to make that hard decision? And it was always hard for me to answer until I applied the value of courage as something that was important to me from a young age. That doesn't mean I always acted in a completely courageous manner. But when faced with two options, and one of those required me to be brave through it, I knew that I couldn't not do that option. I couldn't go the other direction. I couldn't run away. But it took me a long time to get there to understand that. And so for me, it does take courage to, breach a door during a mass shooting. It does take courage to go after a murder suspect. But where I was lacking courage in my life was to make the hard changes so I could then experience all these traumatic incidents, like the death of my father, the death of my brother, the active shooters, and the other events that are in the book, and then process through them and still live a life worth living. So when I knew that I wanted to write a book, and I made the decision that I'm not just going to write a book about 1 October. I'm not just going to write this is everything that happened. This is my part in it. And, this is what you can learn from it. I wanted it to be more than that, because as I've aged and had conversations with friends and other relationships with people that have had similar experiences as me, I learned that most of us, especially men, but everybody, we don't process through some of the things that we've experienced, and then we go numb. And that's how I lived a huge part of my life, was just numb. And that numbed the bad emotions and the bad memories, but it also numbed the joy. So, whatever you're looking for in a book, like this you're going to get some exciting stories. You're going to, see see the insides of a response to a mass shooting or a search warrant for a murder suspect, or all these things that I've been involved with. But you're also going to see the process for healing afterwards and learn to not make those same mistakes that I made.
Yeah, and I just think the title is so profound because you described it initially, that feeling of numbness and just walking around as though you were like a zombie. You were dead, basically, and just kind of existing. You weren't happy, you weren't sad, you were just existing. And so learning to confront head on those traumatic experiences and the places in your life that you needed to improve helped you to find the courage to live, right? To not be a zombie, to not just exist, because that to me is the saddest form of life, just existing. Because what kind of life is that?
Well, yeah, and I took a very long road to get there, right? Like for a huge portion of my life was just numb until I was in therapy, until I learned to process what I've been through. And my goal for this book is to give people shortcuts. Like these are proven strategies that work to help you get there. And it doesn't mean it's easy, but nothing worth having is easy. So my hopes, if you were to ask me, why did I write this book? Really, it's so people can live a life worth living without taking so long to get there like I did. And so, the book opens up. I wanted to give context to, the biggest event that I'd been involved with, the event that changed me the most, that affected me the most, was the 1 October shooting, which we have a podcast where I tell my entire story on that. It's called The Night Las Vegas Changed. So if you want to go back and listen to that, because I'm not going to tell the whole story here, but in the book I give a breakdown of the event, a timeline of what happened, just factually, like almost that true crime, like here's at this minute this happened, this is what the suspect did. Then I tell my story.
Oh, but you also include never before seen color photos of there's no bodies or anything in it. But it is after the event was over. So some of the scene.
Yeah, some of the scene, the festival grounds.
Yeah.
So I give a play-by-play of what happened, insight into the suspect, insight into the investigation afterwards, and then my story, and then pictures of like never before seen pictures of the festival grounds and some of the aftermath. It's not overly gory or anything like that. There's no bodies in it, but in me, those pictures elicited an emotional reaction.
Me too. If you've ever been to the Holocaust Museum and you've been in the room where it's just piles of their shoes and then another huge pile of their eyeglasses, that's kind of what it was reminiscent for me. It's a very somber, very eerie, it's just sad.
Yeah.
So, but I think the photos were important to kind of illustrate what you were describing in the book.
Well, yeah, and I think it makes it real.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we have these large scale events, a 9/11 or 1 October or Pulse nightclub, I think sometimes we get lost in the statistics and the shock factor, and sometimes can forget that this was real and there were real victims and real people that were changed for the rest of their lives. Not just the people, we had people killed, but also just everybody that was there that night. They went to a concert one way and they left completely changed.
Right.
And I know that was my experience too. So obviously that event, it had such a big impact on me, so it had such a big impact on the book. And I talk about lessons learned and how to navigate the fear in the moment, when we're asked to do hard things in life, in business, for first responders, but it's not geared just at first responders. I equate everything that I'm talking about to business and to life, and I give examples. So it definitely shades a lot of the book, but then I also talk about other stories and other things that impacted me. And, I talk about the search warrant with the murder suspect where there was an officer involved shooting. I talk about Loki and give a lot of his story. I talk about how there are mistakes that I made and why I made those mistakes and what I learned from them. And I also delve into some of my personal life and personal losses, with the loss of my father and how that experience impacted me, because, it is universal. As we age, we start losing people that we love around us. And no matter how ready you think you are for something like that, it still just has a profound impact on you. So, there's the stories, the impact on me. I give some methods to regulate emotions in the moment, what we call the Oak method, or Oaks, and how to regulate your emotions to make those difficult decisions when you have to make them. I talk about other processes that we've developed to help people through the chaos and then process them after. And, ultimately talk about even therapy and how you can learn to process what you've been through, because it is insanely difficult, but it is so worth it.
But also, there's a lot of analogies. There's a lot of just really relatable content for people at any stage of life. And I think that's what I love the most, is that it's not just a true crime book about what happened during 1 October. It's not just a bunch of police stories. It's not just, this is my personal life and what happened to me. You have all those elements, but you also weave in allegories and relatable content and how people can relate all of these things to their real life, no matter what stage they're in. So yes, it relates to business, and you relate it to that, and you relate it to people in relationships and in marriages, and it is just so well put together that I did not feel like I was reading like your biography or something,
Oh yeah, nobody wants that. Yeah, well, I've had the experience of teaching adults for decades. And one of the things that I learned through doing that is I can stand up and give the best information that, science-backed, proven, but it doesn't captivate and it doesn't hold the listener, so then they can then apply what you're teaching them. So a big portion of that, which some of the best instructors do, what I learned from other really good instructors, is weaving in storytelling to provide context to what you're teaching. So I took that same approach to the book. As yes, I could sit down and write a bunch of cop stories and people would be entertained, but that wasn't my intention of writing the book. I want people to be entertained by this book. Like, it's because I know the best books that I've read are books where there's stories weaved in throughout, and those lessons that I learned and the processes that I teach, I apply them to a story, so it makes it easier to remember and also easier to read, like more fun.
Well, so anyone that knows me knows I'm not an animal person, and for all of you out there that are going to say, "Oh, don't trust her. She's not a dog," whatever. I'm not a dog person. But so he has a chapter on his police dog, Loki. I've never met this dog. I've heard all of his crazy stories, but the way that you wrote that about Loki, Josh was watching me read the book, or like we were working and I'm reading the book and he's working, and he looks over and I'm just crying. And he's like, "Oh, what part are you at?" And
thinking it was going to be like a profound, like some of the things that I talked about later in the book.
Just the part about Loki eating a hamburger before you had to put him down. Yeah. I don't know it, but it was so well written that even a person that's not a dog lover is crying about that part about the dog. Yeah. So, okay, I want to ask you, and obviously if you're watching on YouTube, this is a very emotional episode. And it just, I think now that it's done and it's about to be released, it's just, there's a lot of emotions. Like, your heart is out there for everybody to see. And that's that's what this is. This is your heart. And it's on display. And of course, there's going to be people that are critical and tear it apart and whatever. But like, there's just such a level of vulnerability to this. So what would you say is your favorite part of the book? And then I have a follow-up question once you answer that.
So for me, like, because I've been so in it so much, it's hard to pick a part that is my favorite. I'll tell you, there's a couple parts that were definitely the most meaningful and caught me by surprise as well. Is like, when I'm writing about my dad, I thought it was important to give context to, because so many people lose parents or siblings. And, I talk about my brother, I talk about my dad, and even through the process of writing it and putting it down on paper, it showed what a difficult period in my life that it was for me and how I was able to get through it. So I think that was probably the most meaningful part of it.
That was the part you had the hardest time writing too. I remember you calling me from Costa Rica, and that was when you wrote that part. That was a really hard, that was one of those moments that Kira pulled you aside and said, hey, we need to reset your nervous system.
Well, yeah, it's, grief is an interesting thing because, that happened literally 10 years ago, which is wild for me to say out loud. But through the process of healing, that wound never really heals. You at times think about it less often, but when those emotions come up, they impact you just as much. And sometimes, listen, we avoid the hard emotions, right? So, but when I'm sitting down writing it on paper, and I have to be real because I want the people that are reading this book to get the value and impact and say, I felt that too, then I had to be real because people can tell when you're not. So I think tapping into that part of me, it was really hard. But afterwards, I called you because I was having, a lot of big emotions about it. But at the same time, it's like I did feel lighter when I came back down because I was able to put that all out on paper. So I'd say that's for sure the most meaningful part for me. And then there's just like little sections that I wrote it. Like, I really like that. Like, I really like parts of it. It made everything else that I do around this better. Like, I wrote this book and then I went and taught a class in Missouri to a bunch of chiefs of police. And I find myself talking about things that were in my book. I don't say that, but just even the class, and I could feel the connection from the audience because of it. So it's just like little parts here. The part that I'm going to read at the end is probably one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. So it is, if you are thinking about writing a book, I would say do it because it can have such a profound impact on you. And I know it did me.
Would you say it changed your life?
I would. I will say that when you sit down, and especially the way, because you hit the nail on the head, this isn't just a true crime book. This isn't a book of stories or a self-improvement book or a mental health book. It's
all of the above.
It's a little bit of everything. Yes. And because it was so much of me in that book, that it's almost like journaling. You're not reading a journal. You're not going to read my diary. If you get this book. Dear reader. You're not going to get that. But what you will get is the true and real me, my experiences, and then all the professionals that I've worked with that I brought in, and just it's just real. And I think that's so. Yeah, did it impact me? Absolutely, because it was a transformative experience. Just even going to Costa Rica to write the book, but then having it each step along the way, and like getting my manuscript done, and feeling all the emotions that came with that, and then having seen the cover and sharing that with you, and each part of it is just like it was such an intense experience for me.
Well, I think too, people that, especially people that worked with you at Las Vegas Metro, I think if any of them read this book, it will truly be shocking because you were a very polarizing person. Because, I mean, people either loved you or hated you, and there really was no in between. And I personally think that's the only way to be. But you made decisions and you did what was right, and some people have a hard time with that. And so you were very polarizing. And so I think when people that think of you in that light, if they read this book, they will not believe that you wrote it.
I'll agree with that.
Because it is just such a different side of you than a lot of people get to see. Like this book is, this is you. This is who you are truly at your core. And I think that that's going to shock people, and I think it's going to shake some people's perceptions of you. It's probably going to piss people off.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there'll be some of that too.
Because it's just so counter to what they think they know about you.
Yeah.
And so I think putting all of that of me on paper and creating something that I know people that read are going to love, it affects you. And I'm like, today's the day that it launches. I'm in a glass case of emotions. Again, I'm excited. But yeah, I mean, it's just because I've had that experience where somebody that I work with or somebody that I meet or people I teach the class, and I talk about the things that I've been through, and they're just like shocked that I've had so many large events. I've had so many like critical incidents. And so now to put that all out on paper and then hopefully create something that's also going to help people, it's exciting.
Isn't it? And I think it's, the word that comes to mind is beautiful, in the sense of, if people also had any idea of the absolute depths of hell that you have been to, like the fact that you have come out on the other side. I want to one day do an episode on PTSD. I know it's talked about, but there's just so many layers to it. And until you live with, or you're close to somebody who has PTSD, you just really have no idea. And so the depths of hell that you have been to, and the fact that you're still here, and the fact that you wrote such a beautiful book, is, it just is a testament to you and the hard work that you've done to get here today. I think you 2 years ago, you a year ago, would never have imagined that this is where you would be today.
Yeah. No, not at all.
And I'm very impressed, and I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
Of course. So let's read your favorite.
Yeah.
So
excerpt.
let's do it. So I don't, at the time of this recording, I don't have the actual physical copy of the book, but I have on my phone, as you can see, like pages from the book. So this is chapter 23, Lay Down the Stretcher.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, that would be great. and just swipe left. Sorry. It's like I said, it's very emotional.
There came a moment when I could not carry the weight of all my past selves anymore. I saw it clearly. Moreover, I felt it bearing down on me, breaking me. This is the price of avoidance. Every time we avoid healing, every time we choose numbness over processing, it's like another part of us dies, and we start carrying that part of us around on a stretcher. We grieve over the person we thought we were or what we would become. Most men I know are dragging stretchers behind them, piled high with every version of themselves they used to be. Every time they buried their guilt or grief, every time they avoided the pain or ignored the wound, they piled another body on the stretcher. This is exhausting. That is why most of us are tired. That is why we become bitter. That is why we cannot move forward, because we are dragging all the carnage of who we were, never stopping to grieve or to let go. It does not have to be that way. You can stop. You can put the stretcher down. You can lay the old version of you to rest. Every knot you untangle, every memory you face, every therapy session you attend, you're unloading the weight of a dead self. And the sooner you decide to lay down that stretcher, the lighter and more joyful your journey becomes. If you wait years, your stretcher will grow heavier until you can no longer carry it. But it is never too late to lay it down. Some people try to climb their mountain on loose gravel, slipping over and over. Others decide early to search the mountain for a better path. Not a shortcut, but a path that doesn't punish them. That path is somewhere waiting for you. The hard path and the smart path both lead to the summit. One is hell. The other requires consistency, humility, and intention. Find that path by facing what you're not facing. Avoidance is the real disease and the real source of most of our pain. It shows up in trauma, relationship issues, drinking, numbing, even overworking. But just as avoiding your gaslight causes your car to run out of gas, avoiding your emotions will make you spiritually empty. I love that. That is my favorite part of the whole book. And I hope when you hear that, I hope that gives you a little glimpse into how relatable this book is for absolutely everybody that picks it up to read it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got emotional sharing it. And for me, it's because, like you said, I put so much of myself into this book. And so I need to get over that. If for when we do an audible,
Yeah.
no one wants to buy a book of me just sobbing into the mic the whole time. But
you'll have to hire my brother as a voiceover.
Get him out there. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that, as she said, you hear that and you see, gives you a glimpse into what this book is about, knowing that they're stories, knowing that you're going to be entertained, and also knowing that, again, you might find that shortcut to getting to a place that took me years to get to.
So we will have the link for the book. If you're on Instagram, his handle's Joshua Bitsko. If you're here on YouTube, we'll put the link to the book. Amazon, you can just search The Courage to Live by Joshua Bitsko. It will be there October 1st.
Yep.
So
that's today that this podcast is releasing. So I know this was an emotional one. Thank you for bearing with us. And if you like the podcast, please share it with a friend, subscribe, give us a review. And I really appreciate you guys spending time with us today.